The end of my inside tour was so dramatic. Yes, that is right. There was a physical bomb in Billund Airport. This guy is like a stuff of a Lego legend. Will it explode if a designer touches it? You get access to half-price sets, black and I ended up having to buy a second suitcase. That set has already sold a couple of times on eBay between sort of £5,000 to £6,500. And how we almost got fired by including a little model skeleton in a castle set, but we almost had the best thing yet to come, which is the vault. Back in April, I was lucky enough to do the $3,000 Lego Inside Tour. The Lego Inside Tour is the ultimate 3-day experience for any Lego fan, located in the heart of the Lego Group's history and HQ in Billund, Denmark. And over the course of the 3 days, I was lucky enough to visit the Lego Vault, a working Lego factory, have dinner with Lego designers, and even design my very own Lego set. So if you're interested in applying for next year's tour, then stick around to the end of this video, as I will explain if I think it's worth it, along with my top tips for how I believe I was lucky enough to get selected first time, because there was people on my tour that had been applying for up to 7 or 8 years in a row before finally getting selected. To start the tour off, I flew into Billund from London, and I got there on the Tuesday afternoon, and the first thing to do was check in at Hotel Legoland, and all of the accommodation was included within the price of the Lego Inside Tour. Now, we did actually get a couple of free tickets to Legoland in Billund, but unfortunately I was there a bit too late on the Tuesday to actually make use of them. I think I got to the hotel around 4 or 5 o'clock Billund time, so obviously it was only an hour or two before the actual Legoland park itself shut. But fortunately I was lucky enough to be able to use the tickets before I went home, as I flew out a day later back home than I needed to from the tour, because I wanted some extra time in Billund. Now, once I'd gotten up to my hotel room, it was time to unpack the massive welcome pack that we got that included free Lego as well as so much information about the tour, and it was actually super cool. So first off, let me show you. So this is my welcome pack, and there was literally loads of stuff in here. There's like prints, and we saw pictures of the people that are going to be working with us. We even got handwritten notes from the Lego group about our inside tour, which I believe were written by our tour guides, and it was just such a great little pack to welcome us to the Lego Inside Tour, of course, along with some free Lego, which is always a great thing to receive. Now, on the first evening, there wasn't really much to do. As I said, I didn't get to my hotel room till sort of 4 or 5 o'clock, so all I'd done on the first night really was have dinner at Hotel Legoland, along with just have a bit of a walk around Billund. So I walked down to the Lego HQ, and I'll show you a photo I got outside there on my first evening. And let's be honest, I was way too excited to sleep, so as much as I tried to have a nice long walk and get myself ready for bed, I was just way too excited for the Lego Inside Tour to begin the next day. Now, I was actually quite surprised on the first day, because when we got down to the lobby, there was so many people there. Now, obviously, there was quite a few guides from the Lego house that were going to be with us throughout our whole inside tour, but there were actually 35 of us on the tour altogether. Now, some people came in groups, most people came in pairs. I went by myself, but I think there was one group that was a family of either 3 or 4. So then, to be totally honest, it was quite a quick movement once we'd all met in the reception at the hotel just to start walking down to Lego house. No one was really talking to each other too much. It was mainly the guides just guiding us to the Lego house. Now, I'd already been to Billund once before, about 7 months before the inside tour, so I kind of remembered where I was going from that. But it was still great to talk to the guides, and they were really, really friendly, and we just had such a great first impression. Once we actually got to the Lego house, we had our own dedicated inside tour room, and just outside the room, there was literally a massive selection of Danish pastries, tea, coffee, juice, and everything. Like, you didn't need to have breakfast. I actually thought that the food that they gave us at the Lego house in the morning was better than the breakfast at the hotel, but that's just one man's opinion, with very sweet too. Now, of course, once we were inside our room, there was some bits of housekeeping to go through, and like welcome to the inside tour and all that, and it was all really great to see. The guides and the people who put the tour together were amazing. Like, I literally cannot emphasize this enough about the Lego Inside Tour is great, but the staff, the people that work for it, is really what makes it. And one of the things that the guys were talking to us about is that anyone from Lego, or at least that works in Billund at Lego, can be involved with the inside tours. So we had quite a new guy, for example, who worked at the shop in the Lego house, and the guys were all saying that it's a really sort of exciting thing, and all the employees want to be involved on an inside tour one day. So it's almost as much as a great thing for the employees as it is for people like me who are lucky enough to go on the tour. So that's great because it really, really made the atmosphere. And now one of the first things we got was we got our own little Lego name badges, and obviously I've now got to keep this. And then once we'd gone through those bits of housekeeping and stuff that I mentioned earlier, we had our first Lego Inside Tour activity, which was to make ourselves as a minifigure and sort of describe why we chose what we chose. So this is the minifigure that I made right here, and I believe what I said when I done my presentation was that I'd got the sunglasses on because I'd like to pretend I'm cool, calm and collected, but inside I was actually screaming like a child to be on the Lego Inside Tour, and I was so happy. I chose a tennis racket because they did not have a football or a golf club or a Formula One steering wheel, unfortunately. So I chose the tennis racket to show that I have an interest in quite a few different sports. So I'm not gonna lie guys, I think that the most exciting part of the tour we actually got to do first. And I'm not sure if this is a good thing or not, but it was a great first impression to the tour either way. So the way that the tour started out is that we headed straight over to the Lego Ideas House. Now this is essentially the buildings where Ole Kirk Christiansen, who founded Lego, started the business. And obviously they've been revamped over the years, but it's literally a history centre now for the Lego group. And we had a guided tour, and there are two people that work in this building whose full-time job it is to be a Lego historian, which is just absolutely mind-blowing that people's jobs is literally to know about Lego history. Now within the Lego Ideas House there were so many awesome things. There was obviously the massive history tour that we got to go on, and we could see things like cases with all of the old wooden toys, the first ever hand molding machine for Lego bricks, which actually looks like it was a massive industrial machine and probably would have been like really hard to use, but it was super cool to see, and the guides were just so knowledgeable. It was actually insane how much they knew, and they could answer any question that we had. I think the best part of the Ideas House was the bit after this, was where we kind of went into almost like different themed rooms. So I think the first themed or sort of themed room that we went into was a Star Wars themed room, and of course I'll show some pictures of what I got in there on the screen now, and it was just so awesome. There was also like Lego city layout, and there was many other themes in the Lego Ideas House that had their own little sections, and it was just so awesome to see all of these great sets. And there was information plastered all over the walls everywhere. There was plaques you could read, there were signs you could read, whether it be about the history of Lego, and the one that really stood out to me is Lego's, I think it's 11 paradoxes of management, which I thought was really quite interesting. And overall, it was just absolutely mind-blowing being in the Lego Ideas House. But we almost had the best thing yet to come, which is the vault, which is located in the Lego Ideas House itself. Now, the vault is a thing of legend. If you know anything about Lego, and if you're considering going on the inside tour, I'm sure you know what the vault is. It is basically a room where they have one of every single Lego set that's ever released in a sealed copy. So these are just retail sets, so it's not going to include things like San Diego Comic-Con sets and all that sort of stuff. This is pretty much just retail release sets, although one cool thing I did see in there, which I've got behind me, is the Mercedes Speed Champions Team Gift set, which I was really surprised to find in there. But there were so many awesome sets, and we were literally just able to pull these sets out and hold them in our hands. We needed no guides at all. Of course, there were guides in the room with us, but we were able to just freely roam around. Now, I think I was actually quite smart, and I definitely recommend this for anyone who goes on the vault in the future. So the vault is almost like there's corridors to it now. So you walk up and down, up and down, up and down. But what I decided to do, rather than start at the front where everyone else started, which is, you know, the early years of Lego, the first Lego sets, I went further back and started then, because by doing that, no one else was there. And I was able to just walk up and down the aisles by myself and just look at anything I wanted to look at. I didn't have to wait for the other people on the tour to finish looking at these sets, because obviously there were a lot of sets that we all wanted to look at, say like the Cloud City Boba Fett. Who doesn't want to pull that set out and take a photo? Now, one weird thing about the Lego Vault is that you weren't allowed to take any videos in there, but you could take as many photos as you wanted. Now, there was a couple of people on our tour that I noticed did take videos, so I'm not really sure why they were doing that, but they did ask us to not take any videos in there, which again, I thought was weird because I've seen plenty of videos of it online, and I would sort of understand if you weren't allowed to do any photography or videography in there, but it was kind of weird that you're able to take photos. Hey, I'm not complaining. I was able to take photos of all of these amazing sets, and honestly, it was just so cool to pick up these sets, whether they're sets from your childhood or just the really rare sets, again, like the Cloud City Boba Fett set, or some of the old castle sets like the Yellow Castle. It was just awesome to see these sets, be able to hold them, and there was just no limits on what you could pick out. There weren't you know, telling you to not touch this stuff. The only thing that was sealed away right at the back of the vault was all of the old wooden toys. Now, I can't remember exactly how much time we had in the vault. I want to say it was about an hour, and the time absolutely flew by. Now, I did make my way through the vault, and then I still had quite a bit of time left to go back and look at other bits, but by the time we had to go, I really did not want to go, and there were so many more things I wanted to look at. So if you're ever lucky enough to go to the Lego vault, make sure you do have a plan of what you want to look at, what you want to take photos of. If you do have someone with you, make sure they're there taking photos of you. But the guides are also really friendly, and if you want a photo taken of you holding a set or next to a set, anything like that, they are always more than happy to take photos for you, which is really, really great, because the vault is amazing. Like, it is literally a place where dreams are made. Now, after the vault, it was actually time to head back to the Lego house. And once we'd got back to the Lego house, we went into the mini chef restaurant and then upstairs where we had sort of our own private lunch, which was great. I sat with a couple of other guys from the tour, and we ended up being like a group for the rest of the tour. So that was really great. So yeah, big shout out to Daniel, Carl and Oliver. It was great to spend the tour with you guys. But yeah, so we all sort of sat together on that first lunch, and the food was really good. I think this lunch was probably the favourite food that I had whilst on the inside tour. So all of our meals were included. We had breakfast at the Legoland Hotel every day, and then we'd have lunch provided to us, and then we also had dinner provided to us, depending on where we were. Sometimes it was in the Lego house, and sometimes it was at Hotel Legoland. Now, after lunch, we went back into our inside tour room, where we were met by some of the designers at Lego, and we had a presentation from some of these guys, and it was super cool. So the guys that were doing our presentation was Sam, who is the person who designed the Transformers Bumblebee and the Sonic Green Hill Zone set. So the Sonic set is one of my favourite Lego sets of all time, so it was great to meet him. And the other guy who was doing the designer presentations was a man called John Ho, and he's like the mech king by all accounts. So one of the things that he showed us was this Monkey Kid set that he'd been working on that hadn't been released yet. So this was our first set that we got to see way before it was released in the public. So I went in April, and I think it definitely wasn't released until June, but I don't think it was even released pictures to the public until about a month after we went on our tour. So now these are some of the cool bits that I picked up on the tour, and you can see this part here is the part that John gave us. So this is actually a part from his Monkey Kid set, and he signed them all. So obviously if we were to buy the Monkey Kid set, we could add this part in and have an actual part of the set signed by the designer. So that was a really nice touch. And some of the stuff they were going through in their presentation was just so interesting about how they work as Lego designers. And they were talking about stuff like how long it takes to design a Lego set, and you know, sometimes it can take a couple of years. And some of the other things I was talking about is how they can have like examples of models, and they'll be building things and trying to do it, and it's almost gets shelved for a while, then they come back to it. They spoke about the botanical range and how it just kind of came from an employee who made some flowers, and it sort of built up from that. And we all know how big Lego botanicals are now. And then how actually there's so much work between designers, and different designers will ask different people for help. So let's say one designer is working on something and needs a mech, they might go and talk to John, who would help design the mechs for the set, even though he's not really a part of that theme or that set. So I think that's really cool, because it kind of like shows how much teamwork there is between the Lego designers. So that was really great to hear. And the designer presentation was just one of the most interesting parts of the tour. Now, one of the most interesting people that we met on the tour, I'm just going to call him Lego Indiana Jones, and I'll insert a photo on the screen in a second, because he really does look like Indiana Jones. This guy is like a stuff of Lego legends. He is one of the oldest designers. He was explaining how he didn't even necessarily want the job, and he turned up to Legoland Billund when he was meant to turn up to the HQ all these years ago when he applied for a job, and it was soaking wet when he got to the interview. And like, it was just hilarious hearing these guys' stories, and how he almost got fired by including a little model skeleton in a castle set that he sort of put in as a joke, and then someone put it on his boss's desk to be inspected as a final product, and he'd forgotten to take this skeleton out because he didn't realise, and he literally got called into, I believe it was Keld's office. So Keld, I believe, is the second generation owner of Lego, who literally pulled him into the office, the owner of Lego, to tell him off, and he nearly got fired over this little skeleton that he put in. Now, this guy is literally still building all of his stuff out of clay. I think he's the only person in the company, so to hear from him was so interesting. Now, he doesn't really design sets, but he would design like figures, and I think one of the best things I saw was more like big fig stuff. So, you know, you're talking about things like a Wampa and those kind of things. I don't know if he has ever done a Hulk, but the big figs, and it was really cool. I'm pretty sure he had a couple of Jabba the Hutts in there as well, and it was awesome to see his stuff and how he kind of has multiple clay versions of what ended up being a Lego figure. And the amount of stuff that he brought to the presentation was actually mind-blowing. I'm talking, you've probably had 12-foot worth of tables with trays on with all of his designs. And again, I'm sure I've already put some up, and I'll continue to put up some pictures of the stuff that he designed, because it's actually mind-blowing seeing the details that he's made in these clay models. So after the designer presentation, it was time to have a bit of free time by ourselves. And in my free time, I went to the Lego store at the Lego house with a couple of others. I found a couple of sets in there when I went that were signed. So I got the Pagani Speed Champion set that was signed. I got one other set that was signed as well, but I can't remember which one it was. And there was quite a few other sets that were about. I believe it was on this day or the next day that we saw Boone, who from Lego Masters USA. I don't know if it's season 1. He was there because obviously he works for Lego now. So loads of the guys were going over and talking to him. And at one point during the first day, we did get given quite a big set for free, which is the Lego House Dinosaurs. Now, it's a really awesome set. You can see I've got it absolutely covered in signatures. And this is pretty much every single designer that we met on the tour. I think maybe it was just 1 or 2 signatures that I didn't quite get on the night when we had the dinner with the designers, but it was super cool being able to get all those signatures on that box. And that is one of those sets that's just absolutely priceless to me now, because it was so awesome being able to talk to all of the Lego designers. And it was great to have such a variety of people there. Now, speaking of the designers, after our free time, the next thing was to have dinner with the Lego designers in the Lego House mini chef restaurant. And the Lego House at this point was completely closed. There was no public in there. So when we got back there, we were greeted with champagne and drinks, and we were then taken off into the mini chef restaurant, where we sat with at least 2 designers, I think it was, at each table. So I believe I had Peter at my table, who was quite new to Lego Star Wars. I don't think any of his designed models had released by the time we were on the tour. And then we also had, I forget his name, but he was on the Lego Technic team, and he's been around for a lot of years, and he's really designed some awesome sets. Now, the dinner with the designers at the mini chef restaurant was a good hour or 2, and it was just great to be able to talk to these designers. They were as open with us as they could be. Obviously, they couldn't tell us about all the sets that are coming out that are unannounced yet, but there was some really awesome stuff that we were able to talk about. People were even asking, like, Peter was at my table about like helmet holes on the minifigures, and like he was, you know, doing his best to answer. Obviously, he was quite new to Lego Star Wars team, so he couldn't say too much. But it was great to hear from these designers. And I think one of the things that you can see online when you talk about these mistakes, whether it's things like helmet holes or anything else with Lego sets, you almost get the impression that the designers don't care or they overlook it or anything like that. But actually, the feeling that I got from talking to these designers is that they're all really passionate about their jobs. So after our dinner with the designers, we headed back into our inside tour room, and it was transformed into a Lego Master Builder studio. And this was like insane. The organization of these parts, I've never seen anything like it. So they literally took basically the whole designer's office and put it into our inside tour room. Again, I'll throw up some photos. And then once we'd got in there, it was time to design our own Lego set, and we were given a brief that we had to work to, and luckily our brief was really open. So I'll put the brief up on the screen now and read through it. So our brief was build a roughly 400 element concept model showcasing the next great Lego experience. Consider, will it be on trend in the future, be in 2025 and beyond? Will the functions impress the coolest of kids? Will it explode if a designer touches it? And the only requirement was that it be done by about 8 or 9 a.m. the next morning and dropped off at the hotel reception. And it had to fit in this box, which was reasonably big. It's nearly the length of 2 base plates, but the width was probably a little bit less than 1 base plate in total. But overall, we had plenty of room to build with. And equally, we only had a couple of hours in the build room. We were then allowed to take as many pieces as we wanted back to the hotel. I tried to return the ones that I took, but they literally let me keep them. So I got a load of extra free Lego from doing the building in my hotel room. And if I'm actually totally honest, this was the only time I think where the inside tour was actually quite antisocial, because I know for me at least, we were so focused on our builds and trying to make the build as good as we can, because we knew there was prizes and we wanted to impress the Lego designers, that we were all just quite focused in the zone trying to build our own thing and not socializing too much. But that actually wasn't a bad thing because we'd been social all the rest of the tour. So I don't think it's terrible that we weren't as social in these couple of hours in the evening on the first night. So if I remember correctly, there was a coach that was able to take us from the Lego house back to Hotel Legoland, but we were able to stay a bit longer and walk back later if we wanted to. So I stayed as late as I possibly could, and as I already mentioned, I then took a load of pieces back to my hotel room, and I think I continued building until about midnight, just trying to refine my design and make it look as good as possible. And then I woke up early the next morning and continued building before I had breakfast and had to hand my design over before we headed on for day 2 of the Lego Inside tour. So I do actually have my build here, so this is what I came up with. So the title of the build was Formula 1 Team Pit Stop Challenge, and I think it was really cool. It's definitely on trend. We've just had the announcement, obviously, of Lego's Formula 1 partnership for next year. So I built it in black. Oh yeah, so I totally forgot that I made it so the wheels just fall off, so you could do a really easy pit stop. So I've done a couple of things here. So you can see I've done it in black and yellow. Now the reason why I chose the black, because pretty much every Formula 1 car nowadays has a lot of black on it, and I totally just dropped the front wing off this car, so I'm going to put it down now. But I chose the yellow because of all the construction sets that I grew up with in Lego City when I was a kid, like that digger and that crane over there. They're all yellow and black, so that's why I went with that colour scheme for my build. Now day 2 obviously started off with breakfast at Hotel Legoland again, and then it was a nice early meet downstairs at reception before taking a walk back over to the Lego house, where once again we were greeted with orange juice, tea, coffee, pastries, all of that brilliant stuff. And oh, it was just so good. After a long night and an early morning of building, it was nice to have a coffee and a pastry once we got to the Lego house. And day 2 was such an awesome day. I mean, every day was awesome, but day 2 was so cool. So day 2 was a factory tour. It started off with a talk from a Lego engineer who was talking to us all the different things about what goes into making a Lego brick. And some of it was so interesting. Now, one of the things I've got down here is what we got given for free. So this is the ABS pellets that Lego bricks are made out of. So we all got a little treasure chest with those in. And honestly, there was just so many things that we were given for free throughout the inside tour. Like the free stuff alone made the tour 10 times worth it compared to the cost. So some of the things I was talking about is how Lego's the most accurate plastics manufacturer on earth, like better than the military and medical and all of that. Now they don't actually get involved in any of that stuff, they just make Lego bricks. It's what they're best at and that's all that they do. And they were also talking about other things like the future of packaging and the future of bricks, you know, moving away from oil-based plastics. And I think one of the most interesting things for me, because as a business that I run, is that they were talking about 3D printing and the use of that in Lego, and we actually got a very cool 3D printed piece. And after we had this talk from the Lego engineer, we actually all got on a coach and headed off to the Lego factory, because it's just a couple of kilometers away from the Lego house in the center of Billund. And the factory was pretty enormous. It was really short. I expected it to be this really tall behemoth building, but it's almost like a single story building for the most part, apart from when you get to the high bay warehouse. But that wasn't really something you noticed when you drive up to the factory. Now, once we were inside the factory, we weren't allowed our phones anywhere. So we had to all lock them away at reception before we were allowed to go into the factory. So there's no videos, no photos, no nothing in the factory. But that didn't matter because we had the best Lego employee I've ever come across in my life. She was like the most bubbly, friendly, knowledgeable. Oh, like she was an absolute dream. Like she is the exact person you want as like the face of your company. It was absolutely brilliant having this guided tour of the factory. So we started off, and as we were going, we kept stopping to have talks about what each thing is. You know, you could see all of the conveyor belts running with boxes of bricks that come off of machines, and we were actually able to walk down into one of the rooms where they had brick machines going, making loads and loads of stuff. And to be honest, the main thing that I noticed here is how many brick separators they were making. Now, Billund is the smallest factory in the world. Now, I believe they just keep Billund because it's all the history of Lego HQ. I'm sure it produces lots and lots of Lego bricks, but I believe from what I remember in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't actually produce that much overall. I think that personally, they just keep the factory in Billund as part of heritage so they can show people around who come to Billund. It's all part of the Lego experience. Another thing that I really noticed in the factory was how much waste there was. There was these big bins filled with stuff. You know, it might have been a brick separator that was molded incorrectly, just spare pellets, or things that have dropped on the floor, because there were quite a few bits under the machines, but they were very strict in there that we weren't allowed to take any of the spare stuff, whether it's on the floor, in a bin, or anything like that. So that was a bit unfortunate, but you know, you can't complain because we got plenty of free stuff along the way on the tour. And then after we headed out the big room that where all the molding machines were, we were able to go and walk into the high bay warehouse, which was just huge. It was absolutely massive. It kind of reminded me of that scene in Harry Potter when they go to the place with all like the potions and stuff that Harry sees in his dream. Sorry, it's probably a really bad way of explaining that. Yeah, it was absolutely huge. And there was all these robots putting these boxes of bricks in and out of the high bay warehouse. Now I have to say, as I'm recording this video, I'm like, oh yeah, that's the next thing we done. And then I'm kind of remembering it before I talk about it. And actually, I keep going to say that, oh yeah, and this was the best bit of the tour. Honestly, the tour was just so good. So the next thing after the Lego factory was that we went to the Lego employee campus to have lunch. So we're literally in the actual place where all the Lego employees were, and we were in the canteen. And I have to say that the food there was actually remarkably healthy, I thought. There wasn't really any unhealthy options in sight. And you didn't have to pay for your lunch. I don't think the employees have to pay for their lunch. You kind of just go up and pick what you want. And it was really cool to have such a variety of healthy food. And it was actually really nice. Like, I don't think it was quite as good as the lunch we had on the first day, but it was absolutely still a really, really nice lunch. So once we'd had lunch, we had time to explore the Lego campus, and there's just so much there. So I think the day before, or the day that we went, well, the massive Peugeot Le Mans car was delivered. There was also same sort of scale Bugatti Chiron in there, as well as millions of like Lego builds just scattered around. There was also this postcard wall, which I've got here, which I'll show you some of, which just have like all of these things that we could just take, and they were all completely free of charge. So, you know, you got Ole Kirk there, and then like a load of them have like little write-ups on the back. We've got pictures of Billund, you know, pictures of like the plants from plants. There was just loads of stuff here, the Taj Mahal, and you can see how thick that is. We were literally able to just take a couple of each one. So obviously I took all of them because they were so awesome. And you know, it's really nice because you've got a great photo, and then you've got some information about that photo on the back. So it was really, really cool that we could yet again have more free stuff. If I'm totally honest, apart from the downstairs bit, there was loads more in the campus. So, you know, there's mini golf on the roof, there's cafes, and obviously there's Lego employees around, but we weren't allowed to obviously go into anyone's offices. A lot of the corridors were off access for us, so there wasn't too much to do. To be honest, a lot of the time in the employee campus was just spent waiting around or planning our lists, because the next thing to do was go to the Lego employee store, which was within the Lego campus. Now, the Lego employee store, it was kind of like airport security to go in, you know, those little barriers that open and close. So you had to like scan your pass to get in. We were only going to be allowed in once, but then they bought a coach after about half an hour, and then that coach then came back. So I was able to do 2 trips. I think I was probably the only person, or maybe one other person, done 2 trips. So the Lego employee store is one of those things that can make the tour worth it by itself, because you get access to half price sets. So all of the sets are half off what they would cost in Denmark. Now, it probably doesn't work out quite as cheap as being half price in the UK. So just editing the video and realised I got this part completely wrong. So basically, if something's about $100 or pounds in your local currency, then it would probably work out that that retail price in Denmark is about 105, I would say. So they do half off of the Danish price, which is always a little bit higher than a lot of other countries in the world. So you do have to bear that in mind. But I went in with a list, and I'm sure you've probably seen me post a picture up a minute ago where I was working on my list in employee campus. So I wrote a list out, and I had every set that I'd be looking for in the employee store, and then I had a couple of columns to go with it. So the first column I had was what is the retail price, and then I had what is the best available price in the UK, and the third most important thing that I had was a currency calculator app on my phone, because obviously all the prices were in Danish kroner, so I had to then convert it and to see what it worked out to be in pound sterling. And then obviously I went from there. Now, when you're in the Lego employee store, they ship you a box, which is, I want to say it's roughly about 60 by 50 by 40 centimeters total diameter, like roughly the size of a Titanic shipping box. So that's how much Lego you can fit in there. And obviously we all made sure we rammed our boxes full, and then we could obviously also buy as much else as we wanted to take home with us. And I ended up having to buy a second suitcase. Like I mentioned, I went for an extra trip. My dad was also meant to be going to Billund a couple of days after I was going. He had actually booked his trip before I was on the inside tour, which is quite funny how it worked out, that he was flying into Billund the same day I left. So I was able to leave some sets at the Lego house with the Lego staff for him to pick up when he went, although he wasn't able to get them in the end. But keep watching to find out why, because the end of my inside tour was so dramatic. Anyway, back to the Lego employee store. So we were able to buy as much as we wanted. There were certain limits on some things, so we were able to buy 10 poly bags. The good thing about that is that you could buy one poly bag 10 times over, or you could buy one of 10 different poly bags, or anywhere in between. It didn't really matter. There were a couple other things that were limited. So one of the things that we had was the Lego Star Wars Kessel Mine Worker poly bag, and that was literally about 70 or 80p each. They were limited to 2, so I bought 2 of those because they're worth about £25 each. I have no interest in the poly bag, but I'm sure one day I will sell them on. And that's the great thing about the employee store, where some of these prices are so cheap, you can buy stuff and sell it to pay back for some of your ticket price. And like I mentioned, they ship you that box of stuff for free. There is no shipping charges. You don't have to pay any import taxes, anything like that. You just get your box of Lego shipped to you for absolutely no charge to yourself whatsoever. There were some other incredible deals. So I think the one that stood out to me most was the Queer Eye Loft, which I believe is a £70 set. Now, obviously this set was on sale loads before it retired, but you're able to pick it up in the employee store for £13. 13, not 30, £13. It was so cheap, it was ridiculous. I had to get one of them. I had no interest in the set, so I've just added the parts to my lot of parts. It was just so cheap, it was ridiculous. I couldn't pass it up. I wanted to buy loads more, but I knew I didn't have any more room in my suitcase. Another one of the great deals I got was the Mercedes Arcos truck. Now, this wasn't something I had intended to pick up at all when I was there, but it was literally less than £100. I think it's about £230 set that. So it was a set that I'm interested in, but wasn't too bothered about getting. But at that price, I just couldn't turn it down. So I did get that as well. And I think that was one of the sets that didn't make it in its box. So I had loads of sets that I had to leave the boxes in my hotel room and just empty all of the bags out into my suitcases, even though I bought a second suitcase. I had 2 suitcases full, absolutely bursting full of Lego bricks. Now, I was very lucky and I ended up actually getting a second shipping box. So there was no movement on the one shipping box whatsoever. You filled your shipping box and that was it. There was 0 chance of getting another shipping box unless you're lucky like me. So the Porsche RSR set I picked up, that was one of the sets on my list. So I picked it up from the store. And I didn't realise, but the next morning, the guides from the inside tour came and spoke to me and said that they realised that they accidentally scanned that set twice on my receipt. So they charged me twice for it, and they offered me a refund, or they asked me if I wanted to have the set sent to me as extra. I said, like, it's not going to fit in my box. Are they going to send it free? And they were like, absolutely, they'll send it free. So not only did they send that set to me, they also included the Dungeons and Dragons Mimic dice box chest thing and an Animal Crossing poly bag in there for free. So not only did I get 2 half-price Porsches, but I got the Mimic box for free, which is, I think it's worth about 60 quid, and an Animal Crossing poly bag, which I just, you know, give that one to the missus. But it was such a cool thing. Like, the service there was incredible. I couldn't believe that they rechecked our receipts, you know, in that much detail to realise that they'd actually made a mistake, and then they were honest about it and asked if I wanted a refund or if I wanted it sent again. So that was really great. So thank you very much to the guys at the Lego employee store for sorting that out for me. So after the craziness that was the Lego employee store, we yet again had a bit of free time where we could just sit back and think about how much money we'd all just spent in the Lego employee store. And this was quite a nice time, because then later that evening we were actually based at Hotel Legoland rather than the Lego house, which is where we had a private dinner in one of their rooms, and we were presented with all the awards for the sets that we had built the night before. So before we got into all the awards and everything, we obviously sat with all these designers and had dinner. It was way more designers than we saw the day previous, and we got revealed 2 sets early. So one of the sets was absolutely awesome. It was actually the Lunar Rover, which is designed by the guy I sat with on the first night, the guy from the Lego Technic team. I'm really sorry I have forgotten his name. And there was loads of other things to do there, like we played a Lego trivia game with some really obscure trivia. The Lego designers were talking to us about named parts and how like the naming system for elements just makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. It was actually quite mind-blowing. We had another set revealed, which was just this little Technic helicopter that comes with a magazine, which I've actually picked up. So it's this set here, and you might be wondering why on earth they would decide to show us this early, because who really cares about this? But the reason why I got this is because the lady who designed it is actually her first ever Lego set that has gone into production. So I thought that was super cool. So massive congratulations to her. It looks like such a great build. I'll definitely be buying another magazine so I can keep that one as it is, and I'll buy another one and build it because it does look super cool. Throughout the evening there was loads of drinks there. You know, you could have like cans of Coke. There was also like beer and wine and stuff. I'm not a massive beer and wine drinker, so I just stuck with the soft drinks personally. But it was awesome to have all of the food, all of the desserts, all of the drinks, and it was just such a great night. In regards to the nights on the Lego Inside Tour, night 2 is absolutely the best night there is. You only get 2 nights. You have the night before the tour starts, where obviously you're not seeing anyone from the tour. You've got the first night of the tour where you're building your model. The second night is where you're doing all the awards. And then by the third night, most people had gone home because the tour finishes by about 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And this night went on really late. Like, we were going back up to our hotel rooms at like 10, 11 o'clock at night. And this just, again, it just goes to show how much the employees at Lego loved it, because they're meeting us at 8 a.m. in the morning and they're not finishing until like 10, 11 o'clock at night. So a massive thank you to them who are staying around, you know, signing my set, talking to us, answering any questions we had, and obviously all of the guides that were on our tour as well, staying for that long. It was just such a great experience. Now the final day, I was not going to lie, I was a little bit tired by this point, but you know, the adrenaline and excitement kept me going. The final day, it wasn't a bad day, it wasn't boring or anything like that, but out of all of the days, it was probably the least interesting. I feel like I'm not doing it justice because it was still a great day, but I think for me, especially because I'd only been to the Lego house a few months before, I found it maybe a bit less interesting than other people, because the main thing of the day was a guided tour of the Lego house. We did have a talk from the lady who was in charge of the Lego house. She was also Keld Kirk Christiansen's assistant for years, so she had like real insights into the history of the Lego group and the owning family being the Kirk Christiansens, and that was really interesting to hear from her. She even gave us her business card, so I won't reveal too much of her information on here. But like she said, like, we can email her with any questions. I haven't actually done it yet, but I probably should have done. So it's Catherine, who helped, you know, bring the Lego House project together. And then we also heard from Stuart, who I believe he designed this set. He designed a lot of the Lego House sets. I believe he was also one of the people behind the massive tree in the centre of the Lego house, and he also designed our Inside Tour set as well, which I will go through very shortly. One of the best things about the final day was all of like the games we played, because we'd done the Learning Through Play workshop. So we were doing games like rock, paper, scissors, follow the winner. So everyone would start out, they'd turn to the person next to them, play rock, paper, scissors, and then whoever lost had to follow the winner around and cheer for them. So then once your game is decided, you then go and play like the pair next to you, and then whoever loses that game then has to follow, and the person that was following them then has to follow the winner, and then it goes round and round until there's just 1v1 at the end with 2 massive groups either side cheering them on, and it was a really cool thing to do. We had the duck building workshop where we were all given the same pieces and we had to build this duck. There was another thing where they gave us increasingly complex models of 6 Lego bricks, and we had to stack 6 2x4s together in the same way as it was on the screen, and there was just so many great games. It was really good. I'd definitely recommend, if anyone has the chance to, a Learning Through Play workshop. It is really quite good fun. And now, just before we actually, I think it was before we went on the Lego house tour, it might have been after, I actually had someone come up to us and say to Malene, who was like the lead lady behind the Inside Tour, that they recognised me from like my TikTok videos, so that was really cool. And then yeah, we went on the tour of the Lego house and we had some lunch. You know, the tour of the Lego house was great, but we all knew what was coming after, and that was the big set reveal for our inside tour set. So once we'd finished with our lunch and the tour of the Lego house, we went back into our inside tour room, and again I will throw some pictures up on the screen now of what it looked like, because we just had this massive question mark box on the table which was obviously hiding our set. And then Stuart again came in to talk us through our set. He went through the history of all the previous inside tour sets, and I have to say I think ours is the best. So this is our inside tour set. So it is a model of the vault. Now I've obviously got it signed here by Stuart, and it's just so awesome. So you can see in the corner there, if I can get it to focus, that all of the sets are numbered. So mine is number 24 out of 50. They basically had all of us, I think they gave us a bowl. They passed like a raffle ticket bowl, and we all had to pull a ticket out, and that kind of decided our number. I can't remember if the number was on the ticket or not. And then they called us up, and you know, we could then see which number we got. But yeah, this set is absolutely insane. So it is actually just a cardboard sleeve. So it's a white box. So all the printing is on this cardboard sleeve. But if you can see down here, this is our inside tour group photo. So obviously they don't have a lot of time to make this, because the photo is done on the Tuesday in the morning, and we received these boxes early Friday afternoon. Now this is another great thing about the Lego Inside Tour, because that set has already sold a couple of times on eBay. I think it sold 3 times on eBay in total since it was announced, and it's selling from anywhere between sort of £5,000 to £6,500. And I only paid £2,500 for my ticket. So you can see it's worth more than twice the price of the ticket. So you can literally go on this Lego Inside Tour and profit from just selling that. Now look, obviously it's very hard to give up a set like that, but that's where it's great. If you've got someone that you can go with who's not that interested in Lego. So there's quite a few people on the tour where, say like, the husband was interested in Lego and the wife maybe not so much. So then they would end the tour with 2 sets, because they both get a set because they've both paid for their ticket prices. But what you can then obviously do is you sell one of your sets, so you've still got one to keep forever. You can keep it sealed in the box or open it and build it. But then you can sell the other one, and that other one will pay for the ticket cost of both of your tickets. So on that aspect alone, it's worth going. You can then obviously talk about, can you sell stuff from the Lego employee store, which obviously you could, because the prices on the sets are really, really good. So after we got given our sets, we had a bit of free time in the room to talk to Stuart, and it was really great because Stuart designed some of my childhood sets. I'm pretty sure he designed that cement mixer down there. I know he designed some of the old Lego City fire trucks. Obviously, like I mentioned earlier, he's also done a load of the Lego house sets. That was really awesome to meet him. It's a shame I didn't have some sets like that to get him to sign at the time. But you know, maybe if I go back one day, I'll send someone a message at the Lego house and ask if Stuart's about, and get him to sign my cement mixer set, because that would be such a cool thing to have. So by about 2 o'clock, the tour was actually over. Now I was a little bit annoyed, like again, only like a titchy bit annoyed, because I could have got a flight home at about 5 o'clock that day. But I decided to book one the next day, because they did say that there was an additional play opportunity between 2 and 4. It turns out that that was just walking around the Lego house by yourself, which I wasn't interested in, because we've just done the tour of the Lego house. I've been to the Lego house only 6 months earlier, so I just ended up spending the rest of the afternoon in my hotel room, and then I went out with a couple of the guys for dinner on the Friday night. Now, part of the reason why I was annoyed I didn't leave earlier, I will talk about in just a second, but first let me just explain to you what I'd done on the Saturday. So on the Saturday, most people had gone home by then, but as I mentioned, I had free Legoland tickets, so I was able to go to Legoland Billund. I think I was there until about 2 o'clock, because my flight home was about 5:30. So I had my day in Legoland. Again, I'd just done it 6 months prior, so I wasn't massively interested in it. But it was very weird when I got to Legoland in the morning, because there was all this police and forensics about, because someone had like blown up a cash machine at Legoland. And that was only a sign of things to come, because once I got back to the Legoland hotel, I asked them to call me a taxi to the airport, and then they told me that they couldn't, because there was a bomb in the airport. Yes, that is right. There was a physical bomb in Billund Airport, and it had been evacuated. My flight got cancelled. So my flight literally got cancelled because there was a bomb in the airport. So I had to stay in Billund for another day. I had to spend all the money to have another night in the hotel. That did get refunded by my flight operator, which was British Airways, but that was like £250 for a night. And annoyingly, I'd already checked out of my hotel room, so I couldn't check back into that one. I then had to check into another room, which wasn't as nice as my original room because it didn't have the park view. but you know, it was only one more night. It was a little bit annoying because we were all sat around, and then that goes back to what I was saying earlier about how I left sets at the Lego house. My dad, his flight was the one that was going out, and then I was coming back on the same plane he went out on. So his flight was not obviously able to leave Heathrow because there was a bomb at Billund Airport. So his flight got cancelled, and his trip to Billund actually got cancelled because of this incident. So then I had to contact the guys at the Lego house and ask them to send the sets back home, because the Lego house wasn't open by the time I had to leave for my flight on Sunday. I had to leave to get to the airport by about 9, and the Lego house didn't open until 10, so I couldn't pick up his sets. And the carnage when I got to the airport was crazy. I probably should have left early enough. I had to skip a million queues just to get my plane on time, so I had to fly out to Frankfurt, which is the opposite way to Britain from Denmark, and then fly home to the UK. So it was an absolutely crazy time. I couldn't believe the end of my inside tour ended up like this, but you know, at the end of the day, I guess I did have an extra day. So look, overall, is the inside tour worth it? From an experience standpoint, absolutely. It's the best Lego experience I've ever done in my life. From a financial standpoint, as I explained with the sets, you can literally make money by going on this tour. I also think if you were to buy the right things in the Lego employee shop and have them shipped back to you, especially if you can also take a couple of bits home in your suitcase, you can then also make a load of money from that and probably nearly pay for your ticket price. So I think if you're considering it, as long as you have the money up front, if you're smart about what you do when you're there in regards to selling sets you get and your access to the employee store, if you do it all correctly, you can definitely make your ticket price back and then some. So just as I'm editing this video, I realized I didn't actually give my top tips on how I think I got in first time. So I just want to quickly cover that. It won't take too long. So basically, I believe I got in because I applied right on the dot. So the Lego Inside Tour, the applications open at a certain date and a certain time. And when they opened, I literally made sure I got in and applied right on the nose. Now, this might not mean anything at all, but the reason why I think it is maybe important is because the guy that I mentioned about at the start of the video who had been applying, I think like either between somewhere like 5 to 8 years, he had always just applied whenever. And then this year, he said that he actually applied like the minute it opened, the same as me. So I don't think that's a coincidence that he's been trying for all these years, because his mum was meant to do it for him as an 18th birthday present. And I can't remember how old he is now, but obviously a number of years later, he finally was able to get on the tour, but the price had obviously gone up since he was first meant to be going on it. So I definitely recommend that if you are planning on doing the inside tour, just make sure that the day that you can apply, because it will all be on the Lego's website, the information when it opens, just make sure you apply on the second it opens. Like as soon as you physically can, get that application in. Again, it may mean nothing, but it may be the difference between you getting on the tour this year and not. Because I know for me, I didn't expect to get in first time. I kind of applied last year as a just in case, sort of apply for a couple of years, and then by the time I'm ready to go on the tour and have the money to go on the tour, I'll make it happen. But obviously I got in first time and I made sure that I'd done it. But that is another point. If you know that you won't be able to afford to do it, do not apply to get in, because if you turn down your space, I'm pretty sure they said you'll never get invited again, pretty much. But overall, the Lego Inside Tour, what an incredible experience. Thank you to everyone in my group. Thank you to the guys at the Lego house, and thank you for the Lego group for actually making these tours a thing, because it's the best thing I've done this year. It's one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. It was absolutely mind-blowing. If you're a Lego fan, especially if you can afford this, it is the best Lego thing you can do. I'm absolutely convinced of that. It was truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and it was worth every penny. So if you've watched this video all the way through, I want to thank you for that. Leave a comment about what you think about the Inside Tour. Have you ever done it? Do you plan on doing it? And if you have any questions, please do let me know.